And we are live. Welcome back to the Dominance Academy. I'm your host, Mr. Justin. And I'm glad that some of you will be here for the live or you'll be catching on the replay. Because we're going to be talking a little bit about the the concept of modern women. And it is a concept because I've been dabbling now in Clubhouse, and I used to frequent that app fairly frequently, but it's changed. They changed their layout. They changed how you interface with the app, and it's just no longer good. But a lot of the same stuff is still there, and a lot of like bitching and moaning about like very similar concepts. And what I noticed is that no one really talks about their own experience. No one is talking about, hey, this is what happens to me online. This is what happens to me when I'm out trying to talk to women. And then what they do is they pretty much just stay at home online, and they don't really have any sort of serious experiences built up in order to examine. And then they watch a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of red pill stuff, and they really don't get any sort of semblance of reality. It's just stories about stories about stories and a lot of hypotheses and things that sound good because oftentimes they're backed with studies about this, that, and the other. So I've been listening to what people talk about in Clubhouse, and it's really, um, it's really just based in fantasy. None of it is reality because I know these guys are not out here. Everybody wants to pretend that they're out here talking to women, having a good time, going to bars, going to music events, whatever, and they're really not. They're really, really not. And because if they were and they were having good experiences, they would be talking about that instead of regurgitating the things that they hear on YouTube over and over and over. And it's fairly destructive because young people are coming into the space. Young guys, they're in high school and they're looking about how to become smooth with women, how to influence them, how to make out, how to have sex, and just all the same stuff that young people do. And they're nervous, just as they should be. It's a new experience. They don't want to mess up. They don't want to sound stupid or come across as unappealing. And so what do? They go to their mass of information, such as YouTube, and they try to get information what they can. They try to absorb what they can. And it really doesn't work out well for them because they will inevitably come across someone telling stories about telling stories about telling stories. And all of it is roughly hypothetical. None of it is really based in what guys are experiencing, and then these guys sharing it. So, what I decided to do was to take a look at some of these narratives and just kind of go over these things because a lot of it is bullshit. And you can tell that it's bullshit because it's regurgitated information. And when you see, like, when my mentor would always say, game recognizes game. And basically, a man can recognize a man who has experience in certain something, and he can express himself in such a way that reveals he has this knowledge and this wisdom. So what I decided to do was go onto Quora, and I think Quora and Reddit are good sources for anecdotal information where people just really speak in their minds without trying to be triggering, because they can really very much stay anonymous and just share their thoughts and ideas. So I just did a search for modern women, and the question on Quora came up: what is the terrible reality of today's modern women? And this first guy says, the following happens to me all the time. I enter some social event in a public place. It could be anywhere: a party, bar, bike club ride, a hiking trip, a work meeting, church, especially bars. I walk in, I keep my eyes on the floor, I don't make eye contact. I don't look at anybody other than a glance to avoid bumping into them. And then he goes on to say, so now he's talking about women. Some slutted up girl in too much makeup, a blonde bot or a bottle blonde, a belly, fat thighs, a big butt packed into two small jeans walks up to me. Remember, I do not acknowledge her presence. I have not looked at her. I have been looking the other way, especially when she gets too close. I'm pretending to check my Twitter feed on my phone. She states very loudly the following: I don't like you. I don't want to date you. I don't want to meet you. I don't want to talk to you. I have a boyfriend and he's rich, blah, blah, blah. I walk away before she finishes. Sometimes she follows me and keeps talking. It happens all the time. These women are typical American women. I don't like American women, and I would never have approached them. Yet they hunt me down and tell me not to approach them. I don't know why they do this. Is it a natural result of feminism? Are they typical entitled American women? Now, this just sounds, I'm not saying that this can't or doesn't happen, but this sounds utterly ridiculous. People don't just do this. People just don't walk up to somebody out of the blue and just say, "Hey, I don't like you. I'm not going to date you. In fact, I have a boyfriend already and he's rich." Like, that just sounds too bizarre. And then to say that it wasn't a one off, that it sort of happens all the time, I think this is a case of someone who has narratives going on in their head and then chooses to express themselves off of those narratives. And it's entirely destructive towards, say, like young men who are coming into this space, and they'll read something like that and think, wow, this is really, they're thinking, wow, this is what's out there. And then they start protecting themselves based on that information, protecting themselves against a threat that doesn't actually exist. And we'll go into why that doesn't exist, because you guys might be thinking, "Dude, the threat doesn't exist. What?" But I'll touch on that in a minute. So this other guy shares his answer, and it has 812,000 views. And he says they want to be equal to men. They do everything that men do. They don't want to be traditional value women. They don't want family commitments. They know things around the globe, yet nothing about taking care of a family. They are the primary target for huge corporations or product disposal. Marketing is mainly for women. Social media thrives and feeds off of women. They can't come to terms with reality. They want everything. They want everything. They want it to be done without question. They believe becoming successful is more important than becoming a mother. Excuse me. So this is another one of those narratives that women want to be men. I don't think women want to be men. I don't even think that they want to emulate men. I think that some women want to be able to compete in male spaces or traditionally dominated male spaces. And who cares? Like, we have free will. We have, more or less a free country. So who cares if a woman wants to go get a job that typically men have held for a long time? Like, maybe she likes electricity and wants to become an electrician, or she wants to become a plumber, or she wants to be a construction worker. Like, who cares? But when guys say these things and they start criticizing what women are after, it shows that they're still worshiping women. And I'm not saying that women shouldn't be respected. That's not what I'm suggesting here. But what I'm saying is that it's dangerous when guys worship women. And I think that there's the danger lies in that they start forgetting about themselves. And even in their criticism, even in them saying, "Oh, they're being overly masculine," they're being overly masculine. They're trying to be equal to men. They don't want to be traditionally valued. They don't want family. So in that criticism, they're still shining a light on women, and it's like around the way sort of worship, and because it can't stop paying attention. And the real deal is that, when you're a grounded man who is about his own shit, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what women in mass are doing. They can do whatever they want. It has no concern to us. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the one woman who's in front of you, and is she doing what you need her to do? And are you doing what you need to do for yourself? That's all that matters. And yeah, is that entirely selfish? Because guys will come back and say, "Well, what about society? What about this and that?" And you know what? Like, societies come and go. If it's sorry about that. If it's not one thing, it's going to be another. Like, did we think that the Roman Empire was going to last forever? No. Every empire, every society eventually crumbles, and the ones that are in it would never think that would happen during their time. At some point, things the way that we knew them are going to adapt, shift, change, and crumble. That's just the way life is. And guys who are, they're not coupled up, they're not dating, they're not having sex. They want to find a place for their anxiety. They want to find a place for their pain, their anger, their frustration, whatever it is they're holding on to. And they need to focus it somewhere, because that's a lot easier than focusing on the self and saying, "Well, what is it that I need to do for my life?" Because ultimately, if you focus on that, that's what's going to make you happy. But they don't wanna do that. That requires work, that requires sacrifice, that requires dealing with, dark, heavy stuff inside you, and, it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant, and it's not easy. It's much easier to take that unpleasantness that's inside you and redirect it and do a bit of, projecting onto someone else and say, "You're the reason why I'm unhappy." And honestly, every person is the source and the cure of their own suffering. And that's just the way it goes. So, guys like this saying that now I would agree that women are the focus of many, many corporations, because women make up a large part of the money that is spent in markets, in global markets. And so yeah, that's what I would agree with. And then there's like this push to get them into the workforce and focus more on work, focus more on career. And but that I don't think is much of a problem if you are a man about himself. Because, I don't like to use the word game because it's largely misunderstood. It's not all playing games, it's a lot deeper than that. And game actually has nothing to do with women. It's just brought up in these contexts very often. But game is everywhere, it's pervasive. But a man with a capital M who's gamed up will have more influence over the woman that's in front of him. I'm not talking about women, I'm talking about the woman that's in front of him, than the environment she's in. And I would say that if she's more influenced by her environment, by social media, by various forms of other media than you are, then you're not that guy. Then you still have work to do. You still are lacking in self-belief and understanding what kind of power and with that responsibility that you have that influence, and then to maintain that influence. Because all too often, and um, I've been guilty of this as well, where you get what you want, you get the girl, and then you kick your feet up. So, like, all this effort is put in and all this drive and attention and, detail-mindedness gets put in into chasing her and getting her, and then you get her, and then you're like, "Okay, my work is done here. I've got the girl. I'm gonna kick my feet up. We're having sex. Everything's fine." And maybe that's okay for a moment, but, like I said, I've been guilty of this before, of just putting my feet up, for too long, and this does not work because you have to maintain. So once someone's there and they're like, "Okay, I'm on your ship, I'm on your boat, like, where are we going? What are we doing?" And you're asleep, right? You get your feet kicked up in a hammock and she's looking at you like, What gives? You wanted me here, and I'm here. What are we doing?" So, and a lot of guys do that. So that's why I said maintain. Maintain is also extremely important. And so, as a man, when you're able to do this, or you're able to exert influence over the people around you and the woman that's in front of you, then you become more powerful than the voices of social media. But guys like this, who say things like they want this, they want that, it shows that he's privy to the influences of social media, allows that to run his judgment and his perspectives, and therefore his beliefs, right? Because what you believe is what you perceive. And so this is what his reality is because he believes these things. And someone might say I'm crazy and say, "Well, you're not believing in reality." That's fine. I'm happy you're not. So I'd rather believe my own beliefs and be able to do what I wanna do and get the results that I want than believe something that doesn't resonate with me and get nothing. That doesn't make sense. I'd rather be a king in my own delusion than be a a pauper in somebody else's, right? So, let's see, there's this woman, she chimes in and she's like, "The most terrible thing is that the girls nowadays, they expect a little too much. They build castles in the air. They want to live a fake life. They have no patience." Mind you, it's not only about women. Some men are like this too. We have all kinds of species, whatever that means. Um, I think that she's touching on another criticism that guys make about women, in that women today, they have unrealistic expectations. The big thing that was floating around last year was the 666, the six figures, 6 feet tall, six pack, or 6 inches in the pants. And the thing is that the guys just don't get it. Like, when you listen to this stuff, when you listen to the menu or the laundry list of these things, these are just ideas that are attached with emotions. And the emotions are what's driving certain behaviors, driving certain words to come out of the mouth. And they're fantastical. They're not real. They're just thoughts and ideas. They're just desires. That's all. And but the thing is, though, is that when you're able to influence a woman to feel in a certain way, to feel herself in a certain way, that is seen as valuable, especially if they're good feelings or feelings through guidance or feelings of learning and growth and things of that nature. When they can actually perceive themselves changing and growing through you, it's incredibly powerful, and it's nothing that can actually be bought. Like, it'll affect the woman who's living in a trailer park just as much as the lawyer working in, Midtown Manhattan. Like, they'll both be equally affected by this sort of thing because the emotion is more powerful than their idea of a man with a six pack. And the thing is, it's an unfortunate reality that, like, just guys are not taught these things. They're not taught how to be in such a way to elicit this kind of response. And so, you know you get these regular guys and, and some women, they're siding up with them saying, "This is unrealistic, this is unrealistic." It doesn't matter. Like, I've got kids and, especially my son, he's like, "Oh, I want this, I want that." And I'm like, "Cool, like, I appreciate you telling me what you want." Just because someone expresses a want doesn't mean they're going to get it. But these guys, they sit back. They sit back and they say it's almost like they want the women to fall on their face. Like, that's really the feeling that I get from a lot of these dudes who are super bitter because they're not getting what they want, and they don't realize that they're not getting what they want because they're not that guy. They're not that guy who can get what they want, and they think it has something to do with money. They think it has something to do with their physical body or their career or where they live or what they look like. It has nothing to do with that. Sure, I'm not saying any of those things are bad. There's certainly great selling points or great marketing items to say, "Hey, I've got this. This is what I look like. This is what I do. This is what I have." But that's not ultimately the thing that will affect a woman's emotions deeply. It will give other things. It will give maybe a physical sense of security, a mental sense of security, but it doesn't exactly move a woman internally to feel deeply and to feel very connected to you. That's not how it works. But these guys don't know that. And so, they get caught up in this external, and they hear, see this laundry list of these, like, excellent things, and these average guys, they look at themselves and they say, "Well, shoot, that's not me. I'm not I'm not 6 feet tall. In fact," and they go look online and say, "Wow, only 13% of the population in the United States is 6 feet or over." So these women are interested in 13% of the men in the United States. And then you go, "Okay, well, how many of those are actually fit?" Oh, looks like it's only about half of them. So now it's around 6.5%. It's like, "Okay, well, how many of those are making 6 figures?" And then they whittle it down, and after all the criteria, they figure out that women are, according to their own perspective, women are after 2% of the population. And they take this information and go, "Oh my gosh, these women are crazy. These women are off the rocker." But really what they're saying is, "I don't measure up to that. You need to lower your dreams." And it's like it the dreams are just dreams. That's all they are. They're just thoughts. They're just ideas. They're just whimsical desires. But I'll tell you what, when a woman experiences a man who allows herself to experience herself in a different way, she's going to be very reluctant to let go of that, regardless of if you're short, overweight, um, not making six figures, not supremely good looking, all the list. If you're not those things on the laundry list, but you're able to tap into that aspect of her, she will be reluctant to let go of that because it's super, super rare. And I wish these guys would actually talk to women about their experiences with men to know that to understand the problems they're actually having. But these guys are actually in competition with women. They want the attention that women get. They want to be fawned over. They want to be bought presents. They want to be bought clothes. They want to be taken care of. It's like, which one of you is fighting for position of woman here? I don't understand. So they're competing with women just as they're saying women are competing with men. And it really just it doesn't make any sense to me, none at all. But if they could get past that, if they could get past this comparative thing and get out of the argument in their mind and get out of the defensiveness and actually just talk to some women about what their experiences have been in dealing with men, they'll understand that it's not pleasant. Like yes, there'll be some good experiences here and there, but as an overall, yes, women do have a lot of options. Okay, they're going into an apple orchard, and the world is saying, "Okay, find an apple." But that orchard is full of sour apples, rotten apples, old apples, apples that have fallen on the ground. Like, they've yes, there's a lot of options, so to speak. If they really wanted an apple, they could grab one of those and just say, "Okay, I've got an apple." But is it edible? Is it ripe? Is it nourishing? Is it not rotting? Is r like, all these sort of things. And for them, it's really quite hard to find an apple that is that way, and it has nothing to do with being really famous or, having social clout or being rich, or being tall. It's a quality that allows them to feel a certain way, and this is, something that escapes guys, and if they could just understand this, if they could just experience it a little bit or at least hear it from women's mouths just a little bit without judgment, without comparing that to themselves, I think they would learn a heck of a lot. So moving on here, there's this guy. This guy's great. He did like bullet points, and he caught like a lot of these like top, you know, red pill nonsense points. And so what does he say? He goes on here and says, "Here are the facts." Okay, these are the facts, guys. From least relevant to most relevant, men's point of view. Okay, so now he's speaking for all men, and it starts off with least relevant to most relevant. Okay, so let's see here. Many of them look masculine, and men don't like masculine women. I really don't know what he's talking about. They still have nice faces, a lot of them have long hair, they still got boobs, they still got hips, butts, small waists. You go into a gym, I can clearly tell you the difference between the men and the women that are there. So I don't know what he's talking about there. Many of them look masculine, so I have no idea what that's all about. Feel like today the body count is high for many girls. I feel like today the body count is high for many girls. The statement, "I feel like," is just how he feels. It doesn't mean he's out here on the streets, dating women, sleeping with them, going on dates, having fun, doing this, doing that. This guy's not doing that. He's gaining just generalistic information and extrapolating that, and then mixing with his feelings of probably not being very desirable or not being out there, because let me tell you, guys who don't have problems with women never complain about them because there's nothing to complain about. Nothing. And it's not about just getting all the sex you want. It has to do with the mindset of the man in question. So feels like the body count is high for many girls. The other problem with that statement is that you will never, ever know the body count of a woman. Not only that, men, we just don't care. We really, really don't. Again, because men who don't have problems with women don't give a shit about a lot of stuff that's surrounding women. All that matters is, what did I say before? Is she doing what you need her to do? And are you doing what you need to do for yourself? That's all that matters. Whether she's had 50 dicks inside her, it doesn't matter. Is she following your program? That's all that matters. But that's a whole other ball of wax, because it's the question is, do you have a program? Do you even have any idea what a program is and how to actually operate it? No, most guys don't. So he says the body count is high for many girls. How in the hell would he know that? Especially a dude who's making lists like this, who clearly isn't out here sleeping with women. So how would he know that? He's not even contributing to the number. I think of all the women that I've been with, the question of body count has only come up twice, and the girls were both inebriated when we were talking about this. One girl said she had 30 by 30, and the other girl said she was I think 28, and she said she lost count after, or no, she stopped counting after 50. Both of these girls were wonderful girls. There was literally nothing wrong with them. They were sweet, they were kind. So, of course, they had different personalities and little quirks and things like that, but their behavior with me, now, granted, a woman's behavior will shift depending on the guy that they're with. So, the way they were with me, it's completely subjective, but I'm telling you, there was nothing wrong with the fact that they had slept with a bunch of guys. Like, who cares? All I cared about was how she was behaving when in my presence. And that's all that matters, really. It like because you could have a woman who has 3 partners in her life, and she's a total bitch to you. So what does it matter? That girl who's got 3 partners, she could be a liar, she could be stealing stuff, she could be taking, belts from a clothing store. She could be stealing, she could be cheating, she could be doing all sorts of awful, awful things, okay? And only have 3 partners. And then you could have someone who has and then she could also be not interested in getting married or having children or whatever. And then you could have someone who has slept with a lot of people, has a lot of self-knowledge because of these things, um, could say, "You know what? I'm ready for a family. I wanna get married and have a family." They could be completely trustworthy. They could have a great knowledge of human behavior, especially of themselves and of others. There's so many great things. They can still be kind. They can still be sweet. And so guys, they're just projecting because they don't have actually time with boots on the ground, actually experiencing women to come up with this high body count nonsense. It's like, w and besides, even if you knew, what what advantage would that give you if you had, like, a truth serum and she's like, "Yes, I've been with 25 guys." Okay, now you have the truth. What does that do? All that does is it shines the light on your own insecurity because here you are with this woman, just the 2 of you in your presence, and you're worried about other men. How weird is that? You're thinking about other guys when you've got this woman. It's ridiculous. So, moving on from that nonsense, here's another silly bullet point. 80% of the girls initiate divorce. And as a man, you can lose all your assets because of your ex wife, potential high risk situation. I would say that, um, yeah, generally speaking, marriage can be a risk for anyone involved. It's just different types of risks. And it's just a risk that you're going to have to take. Like, well, you don't have to take, but it involved in marriage is risk. Just like saying you're starting a business with a friend of yours, there's a risk in that. You could lose everything, and it happens every single day. Now, this thing about 80% of the girls initiating divorce, this is true. This is statistically true. Women do initiate more divorces than men do. Now, let's go back to what I was saying about how she feels. If the man is the type of guy who can who is rare in that, not that he's 6 feet tall, not that he's got a six pack, not that he makes six figures, but because he guides her to feel herself in a new reality, a new sense of herself, a different sense of herself. This is rare and therefore becomes extremely valuable. A woman, now, aside from those details, just generally speaking, a woman will not part ways with a man who she finds is rare and valuable. It just doesn't work that way. No one will do that. If you come across a certain something, whatever that is, it's rare and valuable to you. It could be even something that's not valuable to anybody else in the world, but you find this thing, maybe you're like into like, I don't know, stupid little like antique toy cars or something like that. And it has no real monetary value, but it's valuable to you, and you know that it's rare as hell. You're not going to let go of that thing because you've deemed it as special, because it hits you in a certain way. The same thing is with women. Now, looking at average guys. You got the bell curve, right? Most guys are going to fit in that big area of the bell. Are these guys gamed up? No. If you guys would talk to women and just ask them about their experiences of dealing with guys and, in a general sense, or let them tell stories about their experiences and listen without judgment, just listen, you'll know that the large part of their experiences with guys is extremely subpar. And it doesn't mean meeting the woman's expectations and meeting their standards so that the woman is happy. That's not how it works. That's not why these things happen. Is because these guys are not gamed up. They're not even aware of themselves. They don't even realize the holes that they dig themselves into. They don't realize the level of insecurities that they have, the lack of self-belief, the lack of self-love. And they might think, "Hey, I've got a great job and that should be enough." It's not. It really isn't because millionaires get left all the time, all the time. Good-looking guys get left all the time. Tall guys get left all the time. Popular guys get left all the time. It has nothing to do with that stuff. It's all internal. All of it is internal. This next point, a lot of women that realizes that she has to get married and find a guy when she's over 30 and about to hit the wall. 35 may be too late. So this is another nonsense. Like, again, like, why do you care about what women are doing, whether they want to get married or not, or whether they, uh, you know, over 30 and it's like, oh my gosh, now I want to find a nice guy. And this is perpetuated throughout social media like crazy. Like when they got their party years and then they hit a certain age and then they're like, okay, I want to settle down. It's like that's what young people do. Like I was partying a lot when I was in my 20s as well. Like all through my teens and 20s, I would have all kinds of crazy fun. Yes, women are going to do that. If you go to college, if you hit any kind of college campus, it is like a fucking sexual party zoo. It's amazing. Like, I wish I could go back. Actually, I would probably tear it up in college because now I know more of what it's, about. But anyways, the, um, the point is that that's what young people do, and then that energy can't stay high forever. And so it trickles off. And they say, okay, I'm ready for a change. I want to have some stability in my life. I've got a more clear head on my shoulders. I want something more reliable, something that I can count on. Let me find a guy that I can count on. And then they finds, some average nice dude and he's very predictable and a little bit boring and whatever. And then that's the guy who she ends up marrying, but also ends up either cheating on or leaving because he's not gamed up. He's just an average, dependable dude. And then he gets mad, he becomes red pilled, he goes MGTOW, he starts hating on women, and just the cycle just perpetuates, because he tries to find answers of why did my wife leave me all over YouTube, and then, finds himself down on some red pill rabbit hole. Um, this one's ripe. 90% of women look for the same 20 or 10% of the guys. 6 feet, six figures, six pack. And hopefully they will end up getting some good guy who makes them unsatisfied or alone with her cats. And yeah, this is crazy too. This sort of stuff taken from uh is taken from statistics gotten from I think like OK Cupid or something like that. And they analyzed the swiping frequency of women. And they noticed that women are swiping on only like 10 to 20% of the guys on these apps. And so guys read that and they go, oh, women only want, 10 to 20% of the male population. And this is just entirely untrue. What that is just visual appeal. That's all it is. They look at a good-looking guy, they look at his bio, and then that projects some sort of idea or fantasy and wondering, "Ooh, I wonder what it'd be like to be with that guy," and then swipes on him. Most of the time, nothing ever comes of these things. It's just a fleeting thought with a little bit of a choice on there. Like, when I was on dating apps, I would do the same exact thing. I wouldn't be like, "Ooh, I really wanna be with this person." It was just like, "Yeah, she's cute. Oh, yeah, she had an interesting bio." Like, it was just it's like eating candy. It's not like you're saying, "Okay, this is what I wanna eat." You're just snacking on candy. It's not that big of a deal, but guys read this and they go, "Oh my gosh," and they clutch their pearls and they say, "Women only want the, 10, 20% of men." And no, they just want a man. And unfortunately, like reality of it is men are actually even lower percentage than that who actually know themselves and know how to interact with women on a constructive level where there's growth happening on both ends that happens through him so she doesn't feel like she's guiding the whole relationship. And so he says this is a there is a top down agenda that tries to create conflict between men and women, but women are more susceptible to this. Well, he is as well because he gathered all this information. He's probably heard it more than once, probably dozens, if not hundreds of times on YouTube and articles and all that nonsense. And now he is part of this agenda. So if you think there's an agenda, don't get involved in it. Don't play a role in the agenda if that's what you really think is going on here. And then it goes on to say that usually some of them are single moms with no interest in fun, just serious relationships, if you know what I mean. So he's saying single moms who are not interested in sex, just serious relationships. That is really dependent upon the woman. I've been with single moms before who just wanted to have sex. I've been with single moms who wanted relationships. It really doesn't matter. Being a mom doesn't change a woman's desires. It might change their perspective in terms of responsibility, but these days, women can be fully responsible, control their whole life, and not need a man in order to do that. So it's not needed in that sense. And these guys, they really, you know, get all uptight about that they're not needed in that way, as opposed to like a long time ago when women basically needed men in order to survive. Like they couldn't have bank accounts, they couldn't own lands, they couldn't drive. Sometimes, depending on where you were or how far back you go, they couldn't have jobs. They literally would be homeless and die, or living with their family until they got married. And it was at that point the father would pass off the responsibility of caring for his daughter to another man. And it's like, that's all fine and good when the economy was able to support this. But things are just not that way anymore. And it's almost necessary for two people to be working if they're in a relationship or they're married. And frankly, I think that's okay. I think it's okay. And I think it's healthy to have a sense of autonomy where you have part of your own life that is existing outside of your relationship. And, it doesn't mean that you can't be any less devoted, right? It's not like you have to be, um, like a monk in your relationship. And it's like, this is where your entire existence and being focuses. It's just, it doesn't have to be that way. It had to be that way. But now women are like, well, I can work. I can take care of myself. I don't need anyone to help me survive. I can make my own decisions. I can have a bank and I can own a home or land. Um, I can start my own company, whatever. And this is really kind of made guys feel unsettled for those who only deal with women on a conscious level, meaning they're only dealing with those surface level desires, fantasies, and supposed needs. And so when those are taken care of by them, the guys are sitting back and go, "Well, shit, like, what do you need me for?" And because, again, like I mentioned before, they're taking themselves and using these whatever women are saying or doing as a measuring stick for themselves, which means the women are leading them. But it's not like the women are saying, "Follow me." These guys are just following. And that, like, so is it any wonder that women are like, "Ugh, I don't wanna deal with you?" Is it any wonder that women are are causing breakups more than men do. Is it any wonder that women are filing for divorce more than men do? Is because guys, even without women asking them to, guys are following them. They're following the woman's lead. So to me, there's no surprise. I am not surprised at all with the behavior of women when it comes to dealing with guys. And then these guys go on, about, modern women have too many choices. Like I said about the apple orchard. It's like, yes, there's a lot of choices. But when you're looking for just one little bit of quality that makes them feel safe emotionally and psychologically, physically, it's not as common as you would think. And you'd know this if you just take some time and talk to some women about their experiences. Hey, what's up, boxing? Good to see you here, buddy. So, yeah, these guys are just going on and on about the problems with what's happening. A lot of these guys they'll blame feminism. They'll say, "Oh, feminism ruins women." And again, I would argue that they're the men have become less influential. They become less having the ability to affect a woman's mind, affect a woman's heart, affect her choices, the way she thinks, the way she behaves. This is something that guys have either lost or they've never discovered within themselves to begin with. And so, I was talking to these guys on Clubhouse and they're like, "Man, you just always blaming guys. You're always blaming men. Like, are women not at fault?" And I would say no, they're not at fault because I don't look at women. I only look at the one woman who's in front of me. And if she's at fault, she's at fault. If she's not at fault, she's not at fault. But there's like a clear structure in which I'm evaluating these things. I can't use my personal structure and evaluate all women in the United States. That just can't, it's not realistic. And if I were to do that, what would be the point? They're not my woman. I can't have a million women as my girlfriend or my wife. It's impossible. So why would I take my criteria for structure and apply it towards women and judge them because they're not meeting what I think should be met? The only one that you should be thinking of in this way is the woman that is in front of you. If there is no woman in front of you, and you want one there, that's the thing that you need to focus on. Not looking at women in mass and saying they're messed up. Because, okay, great. Let's say you're right. Let's say you're right. You have all these things, all these bullet points about how women are screwed up and they do this and they do that and they're messed up and they're blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's just say you're correct. Everything that you think that's wrong with women today, you're spot on. Now, what are you going to do? What's your move? Because you still want one. You still want to have a family. You still want to get married, or you still want to have a girlfriend, or you still want to have, regular sex. Still want to have someone, nearby that you can trust or that trusts you, that looks up to you. So what are you going to do? Hmm? And this is the thing that these guys don't have. They don't have an answer for this. They because they never think in these terms. Because when in thinking of these in this way, it makes you focus on what is it that I want and what is the pathway because to create if you have a want that's like out there, you have to create a pathway in order to get to that want. It's almost like reverse engineering. So you say like, okay, that's the effect that I want. That's the reality that I would like to have. What are the steps necessary to get there? And is there anything that I need to create beforehand that will facilitate those steps? And that's what it would make guys think in this way. But, again, it's like you get stuck with your attention going out, okay? My colleague or associate, Steve, Steve the Dean, he's always talking about looking out the window instead of in the mirror. And these guys have their noses pressed up against the glass of the window and looking out and just like criticizing and nitpicking all the things that are out there. And it's like it's fodder. It doesn't do anything. There's no lasting effect. It doesn't create growth. It doesn't create change. It just allows one to have a whole lot of complaining. And complaining doesn't do anything. Like they say, like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you've got a squeaky wheel, fucking take care of it yourself. Take care of the squeaky wheel or fix it and then move on. Put on a better fucking wheel. Build something better. That's what you should be focusing on. But even though these guys, they'll say, "Oh man, I'm gonna get into the gym. I'm gonna get my money up and I'll get all this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna become an influencer or whatever." But it's all still done under the guise oh, well, no. It's all still done, but underneath that guise is, "I'm doing this for women." They're when they do these things, they're doing it either in spite of or in order to attract women. When it's the reality is that if you wanna go to the gym, just go to the gym. Do it so that you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, "Hey, I like the way that looks." Or, "Holy shit, I'm fucking strong. I love this feeling." That's the only reason you should be getting fit. Or you're looking at your say you're into running, you're like, "Man, I'm getting faster and faster." That's the only reason. If you wanna make a lot of money, don't do it so you think because girls like money, because all you're doing is just painting a target on your back and making yourself into a mark. There's a number of wealthy people in the world who you would never, ever know they're wealthy because they drive around in a little Honda Civic, they shop at Target, they buy food in bulk, they lead, very just easygoing lives. They're not flashy. But these guys, they want flashy. Why do they want flashy? So you can get attention. Why do you want attention? Because you don't believe in yourself. You need it from others. You need people to look at you and acknowledge you and go, "Wow, you're freaking cool. I want to be like you." That's where a lot of this stuff is coming from. It's coming from a lack of believing in the self. And this is y- like it's a disease. It's a disease that men have in this way. What's up, Cult Guru? Thank you for stopping through. Let's see what you said here. The red pill does have recommendation. It promotes guys to boost their sexual market value, looks, money, status, but for the wrong reason to attract women rather than driven by themselves. Yeah, it's kind of it's a weird snake eating its own tail. I forget what that's called, but the it's a snake eating its own tail because these guys will say out of one side of their mouth, they'll say, "Women are snakes. Women are evil. They'll take you for everything you've got. They're all tricksters. They're going to manipulate you. They want to just take all your shit and use you and blah, blah, blah." Then out of the other side of their mouth, they're saying, "If you want women, you need to get your status up. You need to get your looks up. You need to get your money up." So which is it? Are you trying to attract women with your looks, money, and status? Or are you afraid they're going to take it all from you? Because you can't have both. It doesn't make any sense. If you want these things, it's fine to want these things, but don't want them for anything else but for selfish reasons. Or if it's for, creating something for the future. That's the only reasons that you should want these things. That's it. If you don't like the way you look, change the way you look so that you're happy with the way you look. It's that simple. But these guys who are very like anti women, that they got that that vitriol inside them, they're actually obsessed with women. They're obsessed with them. Like, I actually had to work a I had to, like, work a little bit to come up with this title because and to, like, talk about this stuff. Like, I don't have this in me in order to have these talking points. I literally had to go online, find articles, go on Quora and all that stuff, and find things on this subject to talk about because these thoughts about women literally do not exist in my mind. And therefore, I don't have this kind of life. I don't have women in my life that are extremely problematic. It just doesn't exist. I don't think about women What are they gonna use me for? And I gotta like be like extra sneaky on top of their sneakiness and all that bullshit. Like, how is that leading? How is that being a one of my friend Cam talks about is being a benevolent leader. Like not being the iron fist leader, okay, but being a benevolent leader, being a leader that gives a shit about who he is and what he's doing and what he's doing with his life. So it's like, how how are you benefiting by having these sort of thoughts about women in general who are not even in your life? It doesn't make any sense to me. And these guys can go on and on and on about this. It drives me insane. And it's like, you could be taking this time to be getting gamed up so that you can actually have some happiness in your life. But I think there's some element of addiction in this. Maybe some element of psychological masochism because, of course, they say, misery loves company, but, um but I think they create that misery loves company within themselves, and it's almost like a hurt so good, right? Like, kinda like, when you get, like, a hangnail and it hurts, but you just keep purposely messing with it. I think it's kinda like that. These guys have this sort of this pain, this anxiety, whatever is going on inside them that's unpleasant, and they just keep scratching at that scab, that wound, instead of just letting it heal and moving the fuck on. Like, it's really that simple, but it's less exciting. It really is. It's less exciting to live a balanced, grounded, healthy life. Like, there's no drama. I have very, very, very little drama in my life. I mean, you can't stop everything, but, like, when it pops up, it immediately gets extinguished. Things do not last that long in my life. I mean, in terms of drama, when you're in relationships, things will crop up, and in my life, they're quickly resolved. There's not this, like, ongoing battle, and, I was listening to my buddy Cam the other night, and he was, talking about his last relationship. And he said that, it was on the topic of how there's this story that it's like it's normal for couples to fight all the time. Like if you're not fighting, it's not a real relationship. Like fighting is natural, it's supposed to happen. Why the hell would I want to be in a relationship where I'm fighting with somebody all the time? That makes no sense whatsoever. If I find that I'm with somebody who's clashing with me, they're just going to be gone. Why would I want somebody in my life that clashes with me? Why would they want somebody in their life that clashes with them? It doesn't make any sense. But we've become normalized, and we say like, "Oh, no, you're supposed to fight with your spouse. You're supposed to fight with your boyfriend. You're supposed to fight with your girlfriend." And I say, "Why? Why would you ever have to put up with any kind of that nonsense?" It's just a clear indication that the 2 of you are not compatible. Now, of course, there's gonna be things that pop up here and there, but it's important to have good conflict resolution skills to be able to talk through these things and be able to guide through it. But these guys don't guide through it. What they do is they get immersed into the emotional situation. And I tell my guys when I'm coaching them because it's a it's habitual for guys to get emotionally into disagreements with their girlfriends or wives. And I tell them you got to be 12 inches up and 12 inches back. Like almost like you're floating just a little bit off the ground. And what this does is it allows you to have perspective. It prevents you from getting emotionally immersed in the disagreement or the argument or whatever, and it allows you to see things better. But when you're in it, when you're in the muck up to your knees, you can't see anything. You're right there on the level, duking it out with your woman. So why would you want to be in that reality? It doesn't make any sense to me why someone would wanna be in the reality of duking it out with women, but they're so used to it. They become so conditioned to it that it's normal. It's normal, and they're out here on social media, they're out here, like, in their relationships, and it's normal for them to be butting heads. And Cam was telling me with his previous girlfriend, he said that he fought with her all the time. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine regularly fighting with your girlfriend? I can't even fathom what that must be like, where you're always butting heads on things, always having a power struggle. Why would you wanna live that way? I'd rather know what sort of structure I want and then live through that, and then if it doesn't work out that way, I'm not going to, like, change who I am or change my structure, change what I believe in and what I stand on. It's just a sign that it's just not a good fit, and that's okay. Like, we're not supposed to be desirable to everyone that you get involved with. That it's unrealistic. So, with that mindset, it allows you to kind of pace yourself and allow yourself the time to observe and absorb and reflect on to make sure that things are going in the direction that you want them to. But it's harder to do, when you're, like average guys are who are easily triggered into their emotions, easily pulled into the muck, easily brought down, eye to eye in these back and forth arguments with women and not being able to guide out of it because they're in it with them. And on top of that, being so sexually obsessed that they will rather deal with that stuff and still maintain sex than not deal with it and lose the sex. And these guys, so it's like when there's desperation to fulfill that need for sexual gratification, they're willing to do whatever. They're willing to keep this person. So they're emotionally just tied in the wrong way. They're tied in ways that are, dare I say, toxic. I hate using that term, but it is toxic. It's poisonous. It's emotional ties that are poisonous, but they would rather hold on to that because it's something, and they'd rather have something rather than nothing. And I know I'm speaking in generalities here, but I work with guys and I hear the similar stories over and over and over and over again. So, of course, not all guys are like this, but it's a story that's so common that I might as well be able to speak on it in general terms. But it's a lot easier when you have a good sense of yourself, when you have developed and taken the time to really understand, like, well, what is it that I believe in? What is it that I am here for? What do I stand on? What's important to me outside of that other person? That what what is it that I'm grounded in that's completely independent of everyone? And that's something that a lot of guys don't really take the time to think about. But that's what should be really driving you. That's the glue that holds a man together. And when certain events will come up, certain situations, certain ongoings, that glue will be tested. And then when the woman is with you and sees that that glue is still holding, she's like, ah, okay, I can trust that this guy isn't going to fall apart, whether it's the world giving him stress or it's me giving him stress. And I talk about this often, the mountain mind, unless that's what I like to call it. And it's having that fortitude inside of you to be unmoving from any sort of conflict that's happening, any sort of strife, any sort of stress, anxiety, or whatever, anything that's coming in that is not harmonious to you, because that's just the nature of the world. The world's not perfect, it's not completely aligned with you at all times. But it's about being relaxed. A mountain is very relaxed. It's not agitated. It's super duper calm. And when you're able to embody this, plus knowing what you're about and your values, your codes, your principles, your rules, it gives you a sense of self that is unwavering. It really gives you a clear picture, and then you can stand proudly on it and go, yeah, this is me. This is what I'm about. And then the woman can look at that and go, "Ah, that's something I can rely on." Now combine that with being able to talk to her well, to be able to gauge her mind and her emotions, right? You're having good sex, okay? This is all encompassing of being able to lead well as a guy, being able to lead well as a man. And this will be effective. This will be way more influential, way more effective on your life, the people you come across, and the women that are involved with you, much more than TikTok, much more than Instagram, because it hits harder. It hits on levels that are intangible. It hits way harder than being able to take a vacation in Aruba every other month. Like, it's intangible and extremely valuable because it's so powerful, but it requires a lot of self-belief. You can't just like, will it to happen. Like, it's something you have to actually work for, something you actually have to develop, and actually part of it involves taking out things that were put in there, taking things out of your psyche that were put in your mind that you didn't really have any control over. Because I don't know, whether you believe it or not, there very well could be an agenda to control or alter our minds, to alter how we perceive things, to alter our beliefs. Because if you can alter a belief and then you will alter perception, once you alter perception, then you can ultimately corral people's behavior. And, so if anyone's interested in that sort of stuff, there is I mentioned this before, there's a really great documentary on YouTube. It's called The Century of Self, and it's all about Edward Bernays and his influence in the world of psychology and how he figured out how to manipulate people in very subtle means, in mass. So he wasn't into the individual one-on-one psychology. He was wondering about how people are affected in large groups, and he figured it out. He figured out a system, and that same system is used today in all marketing and all advertising. It's the same exact stuff. His formulas that he came up with in, like, I don't know, 30s or 40s, something like that, they're still using the same stuff. And to say that that doesn't affect your perceptions and your beliefs and your behaviors, I think is, a bit ignorant. But again, as a man, when you have your constitution going and your mind is right, your mind is right with you. Like, you're not in conflict internally. Okay, I'm not saying right as in it's the right way according to the world. Okay, I'm saying right according to a subjective experience where you're not in conflict with yourself, where there's alignment between your thoughts, your words, and your actions, right? That's called being congruent. So when you're congruent, there's no internal strife, there's no internal conflict. You are one with yourself. And so when you're operating that way, it's a lot um it's a lot less problematic of the influences that happen outside of you because immediately you're just like, nope, that's not for me. Goodbye. And because because like once you know yourself, you can ultimately know the world better, and you can see what's not you coming from a mile away, and you can easily dismiss it. You can easily dismiss chaotic and problematic people. You can easily dismiss things that are not for you, that not going to resonate with you. Like, sorry, don't have time for that. Goodbye. You can easily dismiss women that are in your life that are causing chaos and drama. You say, look, this is not for me. Goodbye. Because that's what's going to keep you on the straight and narrow is being able to have this constitution within you. And from that, because it comes from a place of self-love, that's the core of it, is saying, I give a shit about myself. So if that's the core of it, when someone comes in that has earned that right to come into your circle and has adopted your framework, that's when you can actually love somebody. But all too often, guys will want to love someone because they are needy. They're giving so they can receive. And it's yeah, you can get by on that, but it's more like eating junk food. It doesn't really supply everything that's really needed. And so, it's superficial. So but when somebody comes in and you have that structure, you're actually able to love them without needing to love them for the sake of wanting to get something in return. And that I think is where real love comes from with regard to men. Because if they say it's very bumper stickers, like if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. And it sounds very corny. Like this is a very corny thing to say, but I would say it's one of the most true things ever. Because if you don't really care about yourself, then you can't really fully care about somebody else because you've got that hole. So when you bring somebody in and you have that hole in you where there's self-doubt, you don't like yourself, there's maybe even self-hatred, then you bring this person in and then use them sort of like medicine. You use them like a drug in order to feel better about yourself. Now, I think that, this might, people might disagree about, women and how this relates to women, but I think that once men are able to do this, they can then lead a woman through herself in order to love herself. Because from what I've experienced, with women, there's a lot of self doubt, there's a lot of insecurity, and even all the way up to self hatred. So if you are grounded in yourself and you're loving yourself and you have structure and you're able to lead and be able to love from a non needy place, you can then bring her to loving herself and able to heal through that without having any sort of like needful attachment to it. You don't, it's not clutching at you, whereas like it's to cause, um, poison to leak out if it was ever severed, right? Or if the grip was ever released. See, because when a man loves someone, the man that I'm talking about, it's more of an invitation. It's pulling out the chair and saying, "Please sit down." It's not saying, "I need you here. I need you to sit next to me because otherwise I'm gonna feel alone." It doesn't work that way. That's not really loving somebody where you say, like, "I need you to be here," or "I'm gonna feel scared," or "I'm gonna feel hurt," or "I'm gonna feel insecure." It's, "I don't need anyone to sit next to me, but please have a seat. Please join me." And then while they're there, that's because you have that solidness, you can then care for their needs. You can care for their wounds. But it's like if guys haven't been, because I hear guys like, well, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to take care of, broken women or hurt women or things along those lines? It's not a burden if you're grounded. Like say like you've got like a hospital and the doctors there, they're all fit, healthy, smart, educated, ready to go. They they have no problems taking care of people. None at all. But like imagine if it's the opposite, where like the doctors they were you know, they were sick, they were hurting, they were feeble, uneducated. They wouldn't be able to do their job. They wouldn't be able to care for them. They wouldn't be able to help anybody out. So I think it's gravely important to get right with yourself, get solid and grounded in who you are, create that pathway, and be able to lead then from that position. And then from there, you can you the growth that can happen within someone else that you're caring about is huge. It's m it I think it can be basically limitless at that point of where they can go internally, because I do believe that we are limitless beings in terms of self-development, self-knowledge, wisdom. I think it can go on forever. So if you're settled in yourself, if you're grounded and you're not operating out of pain or fear, then you're much more qualified, I guess, to help somebody else out. And yeah, people do need help. And it's like when you bring women into your life, and I'm not saying like, these women are feeble, they can't take care of themselves or whatever, but I'm just saying there's just stuff inside that is old. It's like really old stuff that you can be like, hey, you know what? While you're sitting here next to me, why don't you take off that heavy ass backpack? That looks really heavy. And how long you been carrying that? 12 years. Wow. Why don't you take that off? You can just, put it on the floor next to you. If it's not going anywhere if you don't want to, but you can just put it on the ground next to you. It's okay. You can take that off. It's all right. Can I get you something to drink? It's when you're that centered, it's so easy to be that benevolent leader. Because that's what allows you to give a shit if you're not needing somebody else to make you feel better. So I really hope that guys will understand this, and take it to heart because it's part of being able to have that intense connection with someone else. When you can look at someone and you can watch them shifting. It's an amazing experience to look at a woman who's in your life and to watch them shift. And all the while you're watching yourself because this is an ongoing process. Okay, game is infinite. So as you are going through the development and changes within yourself, you're observing the effect of that on another person. And it's inspiring. It's beautiful when you see like, wow, they're happier, or they're dealing with conflict a lot easier, or they're more light. Like your spirit is lighter. They're happier, or just more easygoing, more contented, right? Because happiness just comes and goes, but I would say more contentedness. It's an amazing thing to observe, and like I said, it can go on forever. But just going all the way back, well, so I'll cycle this back just to give an idea of how ridiculous that other stuff is. Think about the stuff that I was talking about at the very beginning with these guys. Talking about, oh, did I close it? Did I close the window? Nah, I closed it. Where these guys are talking about, 80% of women file for divorce. Women these days act like men. They don't wanna have children. They don't wanna get married. They're all addicted to social media. The government uses them to make money. They only want 20% of the guys in the world. Do you see the huge difference between what I was talking about before and what I'm talking about now? They're diametrically opposed mindsets, and you you can't get to the roots and the groundedness and the solid foundation that I was talking about if your mind is over here criticizing, judging the theoretical, hypothetical possibilities about how women will be operating in society in mass and what that's going to do, and start arguing about it and sharing these very limited studies that have to be pared down in order to make sense of them. They taking that stuff that's not going to lead you to where you actually want to be. I think if I went up to men and said, hey, I'm a genie, I can give you whatever you want. You can either be right about all this stuff and feel proud that you know what's going on with the world, or I can give you a woman who you can affect, you can help grow, you can grow within yourself, and you can lead toward something golden. I think that they would go for the second choice, all of them, but they're addicted. They're addicted to the nonsense. So I've mentioned it before, I'll say it again. Be mindful of the things that you consume mentally. Be mindful of the things that you consume with your ears and your eyes. Be mindful of the things you find yourself thinking about. And if it's thoughts, visuals, and audios that are not productive, that they're not tethered towards something that you want in the future, then don't consume it. It's a waste of your time and it's altering your perceptions and your beliefs and your behaviors. So just keep that in mind. Um, I'm going to cut this off now, but I also wanted to let you guys know my Instagram is the Dominance Academy underscore. And from there, if you go to my bio, if you go into the bio, there's a link tree in there, and there's a couple goodies in there. There's my dating course that's in there. You can connect with me if you want to do one-on-ones. My first call is always free. Um, and I started something new where I've compiled a number of PDFs for purchases. They're all very moderately priced. They're under $20 each, and in different packs about submission, dominance. There's a little bit about protocol. There's ideas about punishments and rewards, and punishments and all sorts of great stuff in there that are BDSM related. So those can be accessed through my bio on Instagram as well. So thank you for stopping by. It was a great conversation, and I'll see you all next time. Take it easy.